Last video, we talked about the rear end and kind of the chassis a little bit in the rear and suspension and all that and what the plan is. And got Remy out here with me. She's laying on her bed, or one of. But I know this is a little mix of different setups, but I'm going to do a little quick video on the plan of underneath the trunk area from the axle to the rear bumper. This was a tank actually given to me by a coworker the other day, which I'm all about, whether I use it or not. I'll see. I'd like to be able to, because free parts, it's completely fine. It's like a Summit plastic 15-gallon sumped tank. But so this, let's see if I can pick this up one-handed. Maybe not. Let's see if I can try and prop my phone up here real quick. I'll pause it and start the video again. Alright, grabbed my phone holder from my truck for the moment, so I will try and get that set up here. And hopefully this will work for the moment. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. I'll talk a little louder. But floor is still going to be flush here. Trying to use as much down here as I can. Engine bay's a little tight, but goal with the gas tank here, the fuel cell, is going to be about here. I'm going to try and drop it as low as possible, just for the fuel lines and breathers and everything. This will have a return line, but I'm just going to set this down here so you guys can kind of get an idea. But this here is the stock fill location, and I'd like to try and keep that just so I'm not using this one, and if I am on a drag and drive or any type of road trip and I got bags or parts or coolers, or if we're going to a beach day, whatever, when there's crap back here and I'm at a gas station, I don't have to unload the entire trunk. And then with everything, even if I do a little access port where I don't have to move everything, it's not smelling like gas in the car when I fill it up. But I will grab the stock filler cap real quick. Filler neck, my bad. So this came in, hope you can see this, but so this kind of came in here like that. The idea was to maybe take the hole from the center and put it in the front corner. So I'd cut a new hole in the tank, and they actually make a 45-degree one, and then this would turn into just a plate, and I can use that to fill the tank with the foam and everything that I need. And then to cut this somewhere along here, and then probably have to at least do a soft line for a section to line it up with the tank. And then because the fuel cell has to be separate from where the driver is, the floor here that'll open and everything will be latched, and then I will probably do a form a piece of steel here and either weld it or bolt it in to kind of cover this, so this is all encapsulated, so fuel is completely separate and underneath the car. Trying to get as much space as possible back here, because not only with the tank back here, but where these C-clamps are sitting in this area here, I plan to put the ice box for the air-to-water intercooler back here. I can have it insulated and make sure it doesn't leak, and probably add a ball valve So there is condensation and everything. I can use the ball valve to drain it out, but not have it constantly dripping for any reason, you know, backing up after burnout and having water drip on the tires and everything. Don't need that. So I think from what I've been looking at, the one I have been planning on going with, it'll fit nicely in here. I might have to get rid of this a little bit, or this flange here just a tiny bit. You'll see that when the time comes. And then that also will come with it has two different radiator styles, but I'm going with the wide and narrow one. And I will be trying to mount that underneath here, and then trying to maybe get rid of some of this plastic and form a little bit of ductwork to direct air, possibly from both sides, into that cooler. That's mostly, I'll have a thermostat or a switch once the water temperature gets too warm in the box. If it's ice water and everything, you don't want essentially the radiator or the heating up the water when it's doing the opposite of its job. But once the water gets heat soaked from driving down the road and everything, I should be able to flip a switch and have it divert and run back through the cooler and back into the tank. And that should help on the real hot days. Another big issue I see a lot of guys having in drag and drives, especially I think all of them, but I think definitely the Rocky Mountain one, is fuel system, the fuel getting real hot and everything. So I plan to have some sort of fuel cooler, just a little transmission kind of size cooler back here as well. Not sure if I'll have a fan on that one or not, but that's the plan. My original goal was to maybe have the radiator back here and the fuel tank and everything, but it just wasn't going to work, so I'm going to have some of the smaller coolers and everything back here. Hopefully that'll work. And then with, the hitch will probably, like I talked about, will be back here, but it'll probably wrap around and come up like a lot of these do. But I can kind of cut this out and have the airflow come through for the cooler, for the intercooler. So that should hopefully work out. Not quite sure how I'm going to run the water lines and everything. That's going to be a future problem. So that was kind of the setup I ended up with. In the beginning, I was a little more ambitious and was actually going to try and take this window and or this panel, something on this side. My thought was, if I needed to look back, I can look through this window, but I don't use this window much. So either something down here, taking this whole window and essentially making couple air rams or air scoops, and then diverting air down with a formed, it'd probably end up being fiberglass or something, down to either the radiator coolers or anything. I think that's just a little too ambitious and not going to work. But I will actually take or post a screenshot of a guy over in Europe that kind of something like that. Is where I got my idea from. I think he's out in Europe. But he just essentially has two big holes cut in Lexan windows and then standard flexible ducting that just run down to the radiator, which he uses that for drifting, which kind of makes sense, just having 2 holes pulls enough air, and then with the fan and everything. A real crude way would be doing that same thing, but actually mounting the radiator or any type of cooler here at the actual window itself, and then having the fan pull and making duct work down to let the air escape. But all that means is without having it crazy insulated and sound deadening, you have a big heat sink essentially and fan inside the car with you. It's loud, it's hot, and then you have the issue for any reason. If you don't have it perfectly covered up, especially if I have someone in the rear seat, the potential of, say, a leak or a blown line, and I think that would be too dangerous and crude, and I wouldn't like it and end up changing it, so I'm just not going to do it that way.